like a bullet train. Moving like the speed of sound.
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Paul Whitehorn, and this is vlog number 5. And today I'm going to talk about professional pricing. These prices may be different in your city, but for the most part, if you're getting a high-end professional technician to look at your vehicle and or do any kind of repairs, these are pretty much so going to be standard across the board. So essentially, the first thing that you need to understand is that a technician needs to know where the dent is located in relation to the rest of the panel. All right, that is number one. That's going to determine how long it's going to take for me to do the repair. Okay, it's going to determine what kind of removal and reinstallation of parts is going to be needed. You know, can I do it in your driveway? Is it something that, you have to come to me for me to make that repair because I need additional tools that I can't carry on a truck? Or I could do it in your driveway, but you probably wouldn't want me to do it in your driveway. If it were my vehicle, I wouldn't want them to do it in my driveway. All right, so let's get to panel pricing and paintless dent repair cost. So if you can see here, these obstructions that I have on my pricing menu, laminated glass. Laminated glass is essentially triple sheet glass. If I'm going through a window or something like that, and I've got to apply any kind of pressure to it, there's always a chance of it cracking, breaking. Now, behind bracing. Now, bracing is throughout your vehicle. Every vehicle is different. There's absolutely no way to know if that bracing is there until you specifically show the location of where your damage is at to a professional technician. Sound deadening pad is going to be pretty much so anywhere in the center of the vehicle. Even in trucks now, they're putting them in the fenders. Anything to make that cab quiet while you're riding, to get that quality feel in your vehicle. You've got double panels, which essentially a double panel is going to be anything that's you're essentially having to get behind that's extremely thin. Okay, so aluminum panels are different. Today I worked on a Ford F-150 Raptor, and that aluminum is completely different than the aluminum that you have on Audis. Okay, so I would almost liken, a lot of times people don't realize when they're buying a higher end quality vehicle that they're also buying high end quality metals. Triple layer no access panel is going to be like your cell panels, the top portions just above your door, all of that stuff. There's no access. You're not getting a tool in there. You're essentially, you can only really glue pull in these areas. So that's where you take something and you pull the surface of it. Triple layer is extremely difficult. High strength steel is going to typically be in your beds of your vehicle, like on a dually or something like that. And then, we have all of these removal and reinstallation, deals. Like if I'm removing the trunk, I'm taking your headlight out. I'm taking your tail light out. I'm taking the interior trim out. I'm removing your hood, removing your bumper, removing the mirror, removing the headliner, removing a door handle, taking a door off of your car, applying touch-up, all of those things. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. So let's say you have everybody, by the way, everybody has a small dent. I've never had a customer in 25 years call me and tell me they got a big dent. Never. Everybody says I got a little bitty dent, and you have to understand from a paintless dent repair guy's perspective, if you hear the same thing over and over and over again, and then you get so many different results on a daily basis, different people have different ideas of what, large or small is, right? So to you, a small might be this big, right? To us, a small dent is considered the size of a dime from your pocket, okay? That's a small dent. A penny, a dime, a nickel even. A quarter is still technically small, but when you get like to a dent that's, let's say, the size of a $50, it's starting to get larger. Okay, that's how we see it. And it really, for every additional inch, it's it's like squaring it, quite frankly, from a mathematical term. Okay, so you're creating, not only is now the surface area is larger, but the other thing too is when they get a little bit larger, let's say they're in their 2-inch range, it's never 2 inches ever. It's always 3 inches, because you've got to work the dent, right, the part that you see, and then all of that crown or impact area that made something that large. Okay, so that's the things that we're looking at. So, a dime size dent is going to be $99, but say a dime size dent, you got laminated glass, and you've got let's say a double panel in there. That's going to be about $130. Now, one of the things that I didn't mention is creasing. Okay, creases are their own. It's a totally different sport than a circular dent. And typically, like, let's say somebody opened a car door on you, you're going to see a circle, right? But once I get that circle up, okay, and I start bringing it back to its original position, you're going to see where that initial strike happened. And then I've got to work a crease inside of the circle. And so usually I don't charge for a crease unless, that is the most visible thing as we walk up. Okay. And so just take that into consideration. Now, I have some different vehicles here that I want to show you. We're going to start with the side view of the truck. Okay, now this is just this is a basic rendering of a pickup extended 4-door. Obviously, if you've got a crew cab, then the door is going to actually look very similar to the front door, not the rear door in this case. So green represents areas that are fairly easy to access, quite frankly. Blue areas are difficult areas, and red areas are extremely hard areas to access. And that's gonna drive pricing. It's not on the chart, but if I've got a dent that's dead center of the door in the green on the front door on an extended pickup, that's more than likely going to be a $99 dent. Even if there's laminated glass, even if I'm having to work through sound deadening pad or whatever, or maybe that you really have like 5 of these obstructions, right? I'm not going to charge you, but maybe for 1 or 2 of them. Because it really does boil down to I can get to the next unit, right? So faster. And then you can see here on the bedside, all of that top portion that's green is assuming a couple of things. First, it's assuming that you don't have a tonneau cover, you don't have anything like that that's going to be in my way. And this is also different on a Chevy than it is on a Ford. Essentially, if you have little plastic rails running up on top there, once you take those up, there's these little holes, okay, that you can access and get a tool in. So all of that is pretty open. The rear end is also pretty open on a bedside. You essentially, you have to take a tail light out or whatever. The blue areas there, you're more than likely going to have to create some kind of access to get into them. And then the red areas are extremely difficult to repair. And if you look at the fender here, dead center is probably, there's never a good place to get a dent, but if you're going to get a dent, like the green areas is where you want them. So if that is your dent today, be glad, because these are actually also where you're most common to get them. So that's a good thing. Now, usually you won't have anything. Let's flip over to the top version of a pickup extended. And a lot of dent guys would disagree with me on this. Now, the roof, really and truly, the roof is honestly in the back portion should be green. But it isn't because of all of that's involved getting behind there with your headliner. Okay. So to take that headliner down, all the pillars have to come down. Okay. You have to drop it. This is also assuming that you don't have a sunroof or something like that. A sunroof is just going to be almost black. I mean, we don't even have a color for it. It's just really tough to work around. And so You just had to kind of figure these places are going to cost more. Now, the green portion on the hood there, I can stand on the ground and I can work your dent. Now, the problem with even the green areas is, so you're sitting in the driver's seat and you're looking out across that hood. If, I can, from the ground, I can fix, and it'll look beautiful from all of the angles looking outside of the vehicle. Once you sit down and you look out across it, if I can't get my head or I can't get my eye and it's too far up where that red is, then the only way to really make that perfect is by pulling the hood off, which is going to be, for me, that's going to be an additional $100. All right, now let's flip over to the hatchback. The hatchback is, a lot of this is very similar. This is just a typical 5-door hatchback. I'm not going to show you today the SUV 5-door or the sedan 4-door, but you can at least kind of get a rough idea of what this is. So let's start with the top view. All right, now this is assuming on the roof that you don't have a sunroof up there, and the reason that's blue, you've got a lot of bracing up there, but you've also got that headliner that's in the way. So once you remove that headliner out of the equation, a lot of those blue portions become green. But every vehicle, they're so unique and so different. So many computers and so many wires and all this stuff that's running through the top portion of your roof. This is the best way to simply describe the areas that are difficult versus the areas that are not as difficult. Now, the front portion up near the glass on any roof is going to be one of the most difficult locations, especially if it struck through and it hit the line that is where the glass is located at. It may not be repairable at all. So you got to talk to a professional technician and see what your options are there. The hood is very similar. Usually on these hatchbacks and also most pickups, if you take your elbow and you put it on the very front of the nose and you lay your hand down, okay, most all of that is going to be what we call a triple layer repair, okay? In other words, what they do is so you have the sheet that you see, that's the surface. And then you have another sheet that runs underneath that is extremely, just barely an opening. You literally, your pinky nail is about all that's going to, or a thumbnail is about all that's going to fit through there. And then you also have, you got a bottom layer, and then you also have bracing. Okay, so you'd think you could touch it from the bottom, but you can't. So you have to run a long whale tail through that in order to make any kind of adjustments, and you might be able to do it from both sides, but just so you understand that the most difficult portion on any hood is the nose of the hood. All right, now let's get back to let's get over to the side view of the hatchback 5-door. So you can see there on the left quarter panel, the rear just above the tire, that area is green because I can pull that tail light out, and almost all of that's usually going to be accessible. Depending on the vehicle and if that's gas side or not, that obviously could change. Gas side is going to make it more difficult, and it also is dependent upon computers. Most manufacturers like to put a little computer box in this location, usually just above the tire. And so if any of that needs to be disassembled or whatever, obviously that can very quickly turn into a red repair. The blue portions there are fairly accessible, and a lot of this is also going to depend on access. Are you willing to allow a technician to create access? And then, of course, you get to the rear door. All of the top portions of just about any door that you're going to have is going to have some kind of tubular inaccessible areas. Usually the only way to get to those is by taking the panel off of the door and then reaching from underneath to make the repair. The green area is, you can roll that window down and I can get a tool in there and knock most of those areas out pretty quickly without creating any additional access. As you approach the edge of the door, or as the door either meets the fender or as the door meets the other door, essentially as we're looking on the left-hand side, all of those areas are the most difficult to work. That's when you're starting to pull doors off of cars, right? And then the front door, the same thing. The door handle is usually an obstruction. There's typically also a hole that's there. So a lot of those areas, even underneath the door handle, are going to be fairly easy to get on some models. And quite frankly, this is usually like over 50% of the repairs that dealerships and stuff absolutely will do is going to be in this area, because a person may not notice any other dent on their vehicle. They're going to notice the one that they're getting in and out of the vehicle with on a daily basis. The front fender here, you can see that the green area is, most of these vehicles you're going to be able to access through two different ways. One, I can either pull the headlight out, three different ways. I can pull the headlight out, I can push it, I can go from underneath, I can push it, and I can lift the hood up and access it and hit it that way. So this just kind of gives you a snapshot of what is considered to be, and I know a lot of people are going to hate that I use the word easy, but these are easier areas versus more difficult areas versus hard areas. Okay, so as far as my pricing is concerned, I start at $99. That's a minimum charge, for a 1-inch dent. Now, the obstructions on this, the access requirements and pricing. A 2-inch dent is $129, a 3-inch dent is $159, and then 4, $189, 5, $219, 6, $249, 7, $279, 8, $300. Okay, and then 9 is $20. Everything else is $25 additional, and then that's a base price. Okay, and then you add any kind of width multiplier on there. Usually I start at anything that's above 2 inches. So if you've got a 4-inch dent, that dent is $189. And then, if it's got a width of 3, then it's going to be the 189 multiplied by 10%. And so you kind of get the idea. And then, it's in sound deadening pad, right? We're not out there trying to kill you. These are standard rates. These are pretty much so agreed on across most of the industry. So, at the end of the day, at least this kind of gives you a quick snapshot, a real snapshot from a professional, and how we're really thinking about these and what we're getting on a daily basis at dealerships and things like that. So I hope this has been helpful for you guys. Let's get on to the next vehicle.